Well, hello there, and good morning. From Alicante, Elche International Airport, where I'm about to board an SAS flight over to Stockholm, aboard an A320neo, and after that, an SAS flight from Stockholm over to Berlin, Germany, aboard one of those two-seater planes. I'll be taking both of these SAS flights in economy class and without any significant status. All I've got is the lowest Delta Airlines status, which doesn't get you too much when flying this airline. But even despite not having lounge access through any kind of status, I was able to use Priority Pass to visit the Priority Pass lounge over here for a few minutes before my flight, honestly, because that is not one of the better Priority Pass lounges I've been to in Spain. But I'm already at my gate. Boarding has begun. In fact, it's last call according to that placard there. So let's get on board and see what SAS is like after they've left the Star Alliance and joined SkyTeam. And it was very easy to go right through that line. You can see the SAS A320neo is just parked over there, all ready to go. And by the way, I did not book the very lowest economy fare as I usually would for a particular reason, but I still got a very good deal on these flights. Now, not being the entirely lowest economy light fare, the fare I booked actually does include free seat selection after you check in. So you get automatically assigned some seats, and then from there, if you want, you can change them to like anywhere in this kind of green section on the seating chart you see here. But I'm traveling with my wife today, and it seems that we just may have lucked out and been given a row of 3 for just 2 people. The flight is almost full, but as you can see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seats left open in the back of the economy cabin where you don't have to pay anything extra to select your seat. We've got all of our fingers crossed, but it's just a matter of getting down this jet bridge to really find out if once they close the boarding gate door, we'll really be able to sit 2 in a row of 3. How are you today? Some nice Spanish air in here.
Yeah.
The line in front of me moved pretty slow, so I had plenty of time to get a glance at the seats towards the front of the plane. The way I booked my ticket for these flights actually included 1 free check bag, but we'll go over the details of how I booked these flights later on in the video. As I made my way back, I could see that the overhead bins were already almost completely full, so I was pretty glad that I decided to check in my carry-on.
And I've already made it over to my seat in row 25. I've got to say, this legroom is not so significant, particularly because for whatever reason this seat just sticks back a little bit even when it's not reclined. I mean, this is the situation without any recline going on in front of me, but seats do come with USB. And upon boarding, it was just incredibly warm on this plane. It's been sitting in the sun for a little while, and yeah, they had to refuel, I guess, so the AC was off, but they have just turned that back on, so it's getting cooler. And this aircraft that I'm sitting in is, well, it's not really one of SAS's newest planes, but it's the A320neo, the newer generation of A320 that SAS flies quite a bit. Over there you've got an example of one of the older A320 non-neo aircraft that SAS flies. By the way, note that I don't think the official pronunciation of this airline is ever SAS, but I'm just so used to saying SAS. So throughout this video I'll probably just keep calling them SAS. We'll see how sassy they are. But the safety announcements have already been completed. Boarding is complete, by the way. And my phone and my laptop are very happy because they get their own seat on this flight. How do you feel about your seat over there? And out of a few of these not as big as Madrid or Barcelona Spanish cities, SAS will often operate a few flights a day to more than one of their hubs. I believe the airplane next to us is headed to Oslo, though I'm not 100% sure. Obviously, this plane is headed to Stockholm in Sweden, and then you also have flights over to Copenhagen in Denmark. And a third SAS A320 is just pulling in right now, having just landed. I correct myself. Actually, this plane next to us is headed to Trondheim in Norway, and that one that just pulled up is headed to Oslo in Norway. So I guess they even have some more charter-like flights to non-hub cities in the Scandinavian countries. And unfortunately,
ladies and gentlemen, we do hope for an improvement, but during the waiting time here, you're welcome to use your cell phones.
the airspace is busy over at Alicante Airport, and honestly, it's not that big of an airport. So they just announced the air traffic controllers told them that we have to wait at least 20 minutes before we even start pushing back. Mind you, that is 2 minutes after our official departure time. And also noticeable is that although hypothetically the cleaning crew would have come on board while the aircraft was sitting here, still relatively not clean. Well, it's got this kind of dusty feel you can see with these USB chargers that don't seem to work, at least while you're sitting here not flying. But on the ground you've got some varied crumbs, maybe a little hard to capture with the camera without the lights, but Same deal on the tray tables. You know, just as if they haven't been cleaned for maybe a few days. And what better thing to do with a long wait than head back to the bathroom? It's really quite a small one, and the smell ain't great. But they're still not charging for bathrooms, so there is that. And this is kind of weird. Don't mirrors usually go in front of the sink? Beats me why it's like that on this aircraft, but pretty small bathroom, still a bathroom.
Ladies and gentlemen, the traffic around Spain or over Spain is starting to clear up, and we were able to leave our parking stands and will slowly move into the startup process and the runway.
As it turns out, this time 20 minutes actually really meant 20 minutes, and right at 11:20, 20 minutes after we were supposed to depart, we're pushing back. So in just a few minutes, we should be in the air as we continue to roll down to our final departure runway, and then we can see what the SAS or SAS in-flight experience is like these days. We're gonna have to wait for a pair of Ryanair jets, a pair of 737 Maxes, and yeah, more generally, the bulk of the air traffic at this airport has to do with the tourist infrastructure here. It's just insanely popular, particularly with people coming from like UK, Scandinavia, and other parts of Northern Europe who will spend like a week or a month here more than during any other time of the year during the summer. And right now it's May, so we're almost into summer here in Spain. But anyway, Ryanair number 2 is heading on out. The first Ryanair was to Prestwick, which I'm almost sure is in the UK. The second one is not showing up in Flight Radar 24. Not sure why. But I'd better turn my data off because they haven't quite started to allow you to use data in flight in the EU yet. But that is supposed to be in the plans in the coming years. Funny enough, you can see there 2 Ibis hotels and a B&B hotel, just kind of in the middle of nowhere, south of the city of Alicante, which is, well, the big city that you see here. Well, that's where I was sleeping just like 2.5 hours ago. But what a beautiful day flying over Alicante here in Spain. Now, although I'm seated in what they call the SAS Go cabin, so most of the plane, the economy part of the plane, and the vast majority of snacks and drinks and all that are paid, SAS actually has brought back their free coffee service. So free coffee or tea is available even in this part of the plane. Let's give their free coffee a try. Nah, yeah, airplane coffee, but like what you'd find in Scandinavia as well. So yeah, sort of drinkable, but definitely nothing special to go out of your way for. And I've got to say, there's just a lot of coughing and stuff like that on this airplane. I don't know if everybody was partying just a little bit too hard in Alicante. Anyway, Wi-Fi became available when we hit 10,000 feet. Basically, if you have the highest 2 Euro bonus or SAS statuses, then you can get free access to the Wi-Fi. Otherwise, you need to pay, looks like €4.90 or $5.90. There's a lot of different currencies there. You can also pay 1,000 Euro bonus points, and honestly that might be one of the better uses for those points. Aren't my favorites. And these USB slots were actually turned on. I was a little bit worried that they didn't actually work, but they do. Hypothetically, every seat on this plane should be equipped with one of these, so you can actually expect to be able to charge your devices. But well, I've flown SAS actually quite a lot over the years. They happen to serve Lithuania pretty well, which is a place that I frequently do go to. In all of that time, I have to say they've been sort of inconsistent. Like, the staff is always relatively kind in a Scandinavian way. That can differ a little bit from flight to flight, but in terms of service, particularly during the pandemic, they really started to, I guess you could just say, cut a lot of corners. And yeah, if I'm not mistaken, they even did file for bankruptcy protection. So at one point during the pandemic, I flew them a few times and the flights were like all half empty, no coffee or anything like that, and it was just like flying on a low-cost carrier. So now they brought a little bit of some kind of service element back to the experience. And it really does just depend quite a lot on what aircraft you're on, but also what route you're flying. If you're flying a route that will take you outside of Europe, well, and outside of North Africa, I guess. No, so basically to their destinations in the Americas or in Asia, then you can expect full service with meals included and stuff like that. But even with this flight clocking in at well over 3 hours in flight time, service is basically the exact same thing you would find on like one of their flights clocking in at 1 or 2 hours. In fact, the flight that we'll take after this one onwards to Berlin should have hypothetically the exact same kind of offerings as this one. So, I mean, as this flight is turning out, we're about 2 hours into the flight and it's not terribly uncomfortable. Of course, at least with these seats back here, especially in this row, there's just not that much space. But again, that's kind of what you get if you don't want to pay for a seat or don't hold one of the higher statuses to select a better seat for free, etc. But right now, we're just kind of cruising over some beautiful beaches. I guess it was France. I'm not sure if this is Belgium or possibly even already the Netherlands. I do see quite a few windmills down there. And hypothetically, the app does have a map to track where you are, but it doesn't seem to actually load all the way. I'm not sure if that's a sign that the internet also would be a bit laggy or something. I don't know, it just looks like this. If you recognize it, tell us in the comments where I'm flying over right now. But yeah, the SAS experience, besides a few discomforts that, let's face it, could probably be found on pretty much any airline operating shorter flights in Europe, is pretty okay. Plus, having a clear day like this, especially once you start to get up towards Northern Europe, is just always a bonus. But if I had to sit, let's say, in this middle seat with two larger people beside me, I don't know if I'd be so happy. But again, the good news is, when flying SAS, you often can find yourself booked on a plane that has 2-2 seating, meaning if you're just traveling with one person, you don't have to worry about middle seats. There are no middle seats. Soon enough, in I guess about an hour from now, we'll start our descent into Stockholm, see what it's like to have a layover at Stockholm Arlanda Airport, a pretty long one by the way, almost 3 hours, and then we can compare the type of aircraft that SAS has on offer for shorter and medium length flights around Europe. That really is quite the long beach they've got over here, isn't it? Okay, I figured out where we are. Down there is Schiphol Airport. And this is the pretty little city of Amsterdam. So going out that way to the coast must be the Dutch city of Haarlem. They have a lot of beach line in the Netherlands, my gosh. And we are now 7 minutes and 45, 44, 43, 42 seconds away. I love that you can track the exact amount of time until your arrival without even opening up the SAS app, just by connecting to the Wi-Fi network. That's actually really cool. And overall, the whole crew has been like really communicative the whole flight, with the pilot and co-pilot giving really frequent updates. But here we are encountering a little bit of light turbulence as we enter our final descent down into Stockholm Arlanda Airport. So in the end, only maybe about 15 minutes late, we've already pulled up to a jet bridge. We should be in the airport to hang out for 2.5 hours in no time. Well, not quite a jet bridge, but these stairs look to be right next to the terminal, so possibly just walk in without a bus. At least I hope. I'm not dressed appropriately for this. So, the A320neo, they kind of pack you tight there. That's my take on that, but so far an acceptable experience. Certainly not the best economy I've been on in Europe or anything like that. But let's keep going with this. See what their terminal's looking like in 2025. I haven't been here for at least a year, and then we'll see what that second flight is like. But lesson learned, don't be like me. If you've got a layover in Stockholm, anywhere in Northern Europe in May, bring your jacket, don't check it in. Well, one really nice thing is that you just get let out right into the terminal if you're on a Schengen flight. And well, in the end, I did find myself over here at the SAS lounge, just their lowest lounge. And the reason is, I have ITA Airways status. Obviously, ITA Airways has left SkyTeam now, but there's a kind of phasing out period. And somehow, I was talking to the person at the front desk here, and during that unclear phasing out period that maybe more or less officially was supposed to end on April 30th, if you talk to the right person at the SAS lounge, they'll still let you in. Maybe. Your mileage may vary there. Other airlines like KLM and Air France are still officially letting in ITA status holders, formerly SkyTeam Elite Plus ITA status holders. But the moral of the story, it's always worth attempting to enter the lounge if you think there's any reason that you might have access to it. And if you didn't have access, just coming into this lounge would cost you 55 euros. Kind of steep. I mean, the food offerings are fine. There's lots of drinks and the staff are kind. But I think you could probably eat better outside here in the airport for 55 euros. And my second flight for today will be flown aboard the CRJ900 long range. They just landed here from Oslo. They've got a pretty quick changing time, I guess. It's like a little bit under an hour. This is actually the 7th flight that this plane will be doing today. I think it's got 8 in total, so. Despite being the long range variation of this aircraft, they really have these guys going like workhorses on a lot of short haul European flights. Also worth considering is that I arrived just over here to gate F39, and I'm departing from gate F38. So even if you have like, I don't know, 1 hour layover, and you don't go to the lounge or anything, if you're in the F gates, it's very convenient here. But if you have to go over to the other end of the airport or exit or into the Schengen area, then things start to take a bit more time. Boarding's about to start, so let's see what it's like on board.
In a few minutes, we'll begin the boarding process, where we'll board you by groups. Could also notify that the aircraft we have today has small overhead compartments, so if you happen to have a larger carry-on bag, it will maybe not fit. The solution to this is to place one of these orange tags on your bag.
And you can see they've got 5 boarding groups on this flight. 1 and 2 are boarding now. I've got group 3.
Boarding group number 3 for Japanese Silver and Scandinavian cardholders.
Thanks. And I guess I've got group number 3 because I've got my lowest Delta Silver status in this booking, I guess. But I did also book not exactly the lowest of low fares this time for a reason that we'll go over once we get on board. But here we are. Oh, it's cold out here. You just walk on over to your SAS flight at this part of the airport. Flugbra. I don't know if that's how you speak Swedish. And notable about this second flight as well, like many of these short haul flights you'll see SAS operating, they're actually operated by CityJet, not SAS. But CityJet is just a subsidiary of SAS. Hypothetically the same experience, but let's go on board and verify that.
Welcome on board. When you have found your seat, please step aside to allow other passengers to pass by you. There is also space for your cabin baggage under the seat in front of you. If you are seated in the first seat row or in an exit row, all baggage and loose items must be stowed in the overhead compartment.
Now, as I was mentioning earlier, seats are automatically assigned. On the SAS Light fares, I don't think you can even change your seat, but on the fare I booked, it's just like 1 tier above the lightest. And so I was able to select this exit row without paying anything extra. Comparing to our first flight, that really is a nice amount of legroom right there. This flight is turning out to be quite a bit emptier than the first one. But nevertheless, in these CRJs, there's a limited amount of space above. And there's really just a crew of 2 on board this flight. I guess there's around 100 seats in total, with only the first 3 rows being that SAS Plus and the rest SAS Go. But we've just done our first step of pushing back. Guess we'll head to our runway pretty soon. And today's a lucky day, I guess you could say. Whenever you fly around in Europe towards summer, the longer daylight hours often mean that even if you're taking more than 1 flight in a day, both of the takeoffs and both of the landings that you have will be during the daylight, so you actually get to see something. But it looks like we've made it out to our takeoff runway already, so it's just a matter of time before we're in the air. But today, it looks like I'm sitting on the wrong side of the plane because we're circling around right, and that's where the views of Stockholm would be, I believe. But anyway, it's that mild northern European weather, so we're almost above the clouds already, regardless. But once we hit 10,000 feet, the seatbelt sign was immediately turned off, and service began. Again, it's just a crew of 2 walking around, but a much smaller aircraft, so pretty much the same speed as on that Airbus, to be honest, just less people working. And outside of maybe some of the food options that you could have bought on the first flight, drinks, snacks, and all that are exactly the same. Oh yeah, and sitting in the emergency exit row on these old CRJs, they've got these bulkhead style trays that come out. Looks like, I don't know, at some point these trays were in use, but they're very locked out at the moment. The other bathroom's not working, so everybody gets to use the SAS Plus bathroom today. There's nothing plus about it though. It's tiny on this CRJ. And well, yeah, having one of only 2 tiny toilets on the plane out of operation does feel a little bit sloppy, or perhaps sassy. But the intra-Europe SAS experience, let's talk about it. First off, there is some service element to SAS, which I have to say is a little bit better than I'd experienced in recent years on my recent experiences on this airline. So I think there's maybe a little bit of kind of improvement going on, if I had to guess. Improvement or not, a cup of coffee is it's always nice to have on an airplane. It's a tiny thing. Another definite upside to traveling with flights with a layover with SAS is the fact that you're going to be transiting at one of 3 Scandinavian airports, either Oslo, Stockholm, Arlanda, or Copenhagen, Kastrup. And to be honest, all 3 of those airports, in my view at least, are quite efficient and relatively nice to transit through. But I mean, in the air, I guess there's a little bit left to be desired. You could have like a free snack, you could have better legroom throughout all of the aircraft. But I pretty much put this experience at par with experiences I've had on a lot of other European airlines, like basically any airline in the Lufthansa group, Finnair, or really any of the other kind of full-service legacy airlines that are members of an alliance flying around Europe, with a few exceptions, namely for Air France, which just, in my opinion, has a better experience. But every once in a while, SAS does have very competitive fares on routes that can seem kind of random, because they fly to a lot of, I don't know, kind of like secondary Spanish cities, secondary Italian cities, and really just other places that often maybe have some seasonality and end up having a lot of empty seats that need to be filled. And that, y'all, is the exact reason that I'm sitting on this SAS airplane today. All those SAS flights out of Alicante meant that fares were pretty low. In fact, if I had booked the cheapest of cheap SAS light fares, it would have cost me somewhere around 70 euros for both of these flights. But the thing is, I had a small amount of chase points burning a hole in my pocket forever. I needed to use them. Now, when you go into the Chase travel portal, which is basically powered by Expedia, often intra-European flights will not give you the option to book the cheapest fare. And that's exactly what happened in this case. The cheapest fare would be SAS Go Light, and I am booked on SAS Go Smart, because of course I'm a smart guy, right? So, for $112 US and 50 cents, well, technically the equivalent in chase points, but you get the idea, I was able to book these 2 SAS flights and get from Alicante to where I needed to go in Berlin for over 100 euros less than any other airline was charging, even traveling 2 days later or 2 days before. All in all, I just don't feel like SAS is at the very top when it comes to European airlines offering intra-European flights, but it's a pretty solid experience, at least based on what I've had today. So, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to my channel for many more travel videos, including flight reviews of now almost every legacy carrier in economy class flying around Europe. Only one question left. Just how sassy is this landing gonna be? Pretty darn sassy.
Welcome to Berlin.